Welcome to the Massacre Matinee.
Welcome to the surprise bonus episode.
Ah, wow.
Were you prepared?
No.
Me either. But that's okay, because it's a relatively short one.
Yeah.
And it's kinda local. Kinda. It happened in Laurium, Michigan. Like hour and a half north. Up by Calumet. Up on the Keweenaw Peninsula. So a lot of the information that I'm going to give you off of this one is actually from a news article that was released by the Detroit Free Press. This news article was released Monday, April 9th of 1979. And in the course of this article, that is how I kind of like backtrack to find out what day this event in particular happened. I have reason to believe it happened like April 4th.
Sometime in April, I guess we could just say.
Or early April. So, I'm going to tell you a little bit before we get to the actual event in the beginning of April of 1979. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Maynard Hurlburt. Hell of a name.
Man, you're just on a roll with these names
I
lately.
I promise you I'm not just looking for the names, I'm looking for the situations. Up in Laurium, there's a house that is now known as the Laurium Manor Inn. Before becoming the Laurium Manor Inn, it was actually owned by the Hurlburt family. So Maynard was a undertaker, a mortician, a funeral director, what have you. He took care of dead people. He signed death certificates. Like, that's his job.
Made dead people ready to go 6 feet under.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, so he had that funeral home. Had it for a really long time. Now, he met his wife. Let's see if I can find that real quick. He met his wife and married her. His wife's name was Jane in 1941, so shortly before the war. And Jane was actually married beforehand. But Jane was the daughter of Hurlburt's boss at the time. And from her first marriage, she had 3 kids.
Yeah.
And Maynard was like, that's okay. I'll adopt your kids. Come on, let's get married. So he was like, I'll help you raise your kids. I'll adopt your kids. And his grandson, Tommy, who's also important to this story, his name was Tommy Burns. He was the son of one of Jane's daughters, and I guess Tommy was kind of a problem child.
Yeah.
So they were like, we don't want him anymore. So when he was 6, they were just like, here you go. Raise your grandson, because I don't want to. He's kind of stressing me out. And it was described as he was like dumped on Maynard, like it was just like, here, you don't really have a choice, like you have to take him kind of thing. And throughout the course of life, I guess Jane kind of started drinking kind of heavily.
Yeah.
And had some like alcohol related issues, so she was kind of bedridden. So Maynard's a mortician and he's going out working all the time and then coming home and taking care of his wife, who's bedridden, and taking care of his grandson, who 2 years prior to this incident had actually almost been burned to death in his fire. His grandson had. He ended up severely burned, but he survived, thankfully. So a lot of things were kind of going sideways, I guess, for Maynard. He was in a rough spot. Business wasn't doing so great. Bills are adding up. Medical bills are adding up because his wife's got to go to the doctor a lot. And his grandson had been burned, so he probably had some doctor's appointments and things too to take care of the burns and stuff like that, even 2 years later. So he's getting pretty stressed out, and then all of a sudden his doctor's like, hey, so you got a heart problem, Maynard. You're gonna need surgery. And he's like, well, fuck. Like, if I gotta get surgery, like, who's gonna take care of my wife?
Yeah.
Who's gonna take care of my grandson? Like, they don't have anybody to take care of him. And a lot of people said that he was, like, a super nice guy. Maynard was, like, sweet as can be. Everybody loved him, and thought he was a really awesome guy. And now all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm gonna shit on you. And then I'm gonna shit on you again. And just everything's gonna go wrong for you, Maynard. Like, fuck you, Maynard. Life's like, no. Yeah. And so he got really stressed out, which I can kind of understand.
Very understandable.
I mean, things are tough when it's, especially, you know, back in the past when it was still very much a men aren't allowed to be stressed out and have emotions kind of time, you know? So, and I'm leaving a lot of the story out on the backstory of this because I just kind of want to, I'm not gonna lie, I just kind of want to get to the meat and potatoes of it.
Right, and sometimes with those articles, they kind of throw a lot of filler in because they have to reach word counts.
Right, so Maynard's like stressed out. He's like, well, they're saying I need this heart surgery, which means, you know, if I don't get the surgery, I'm gonna die. And if I do get the surgery, who's gonna take care of my wife and my grandson? And my wife can't get out of bed. My grandson's kind of a problem child. He was 15 at this point. Mm-hmm. He's kind of a problem child, and he's a little bit, like, reclusive now because he'd been burned, and, you know, kids are kids. They're probably bullying him a bit. So he decided that his friends described what he did as more representative of his merciful nature. In the article specifically, it says, quote, friends said this gruesome, seemingly deranged behavior was really more representative of his merciful and self-sacrificing nature. It was just, he was that nice of a person. He didn't want his family to be somebody else's burden. Not saying that what he did was right, but they're trying to say this is the kind of person he was. This is how he thought. So I want to say it was April 4th, 1979. He took his wife and grandson's lives. It does not say
how
in the article how. And it's a small town thing, so there's not as much information as like some of these big time cases like the McDonald's massacre was in the last one. Yeah. So Maynard at this point was 65, his wife was 64, and his grandson was 15. He took their lives, and because he was a mortician, he selected their coffins, he hung up the clothes that he wanted them to be buried in, and he signed their death certificates before he was like, all right, I'm out, and he took his own life. So it was a double murder-suicide.
Knowing that he's a mortician, I wonder if he had access to stuff that would be a bit more peaceful.
That's hard to say because, I mean, maybe he would have had, like, embalming sorts of things. However, I don't think morticians would need tranquilizers or anything, like, anything to, like, knock them out. But, I mean, like I said, it doesn't describe in the article how he did things.
And knowing that a lot of people said that it was him doing it merciful, he probably tried his hardest to do it in a way that wasn't going to cause pain.
Well, a longtime friend of Maynard's was actually quoted saying, Maynard figured that was the best way to take them with him, and that he figured he'd just clean up the slate right there, I guess. Yeah. So he felt like everything was going wrong. His business was failing, and his wife wasn't doing well, and Tommy just got ditched. I mean, his mom was like, no, I don't want him, and his dad doesn't want him, so you got to take him. Yeah. And so it was a lot of unnecessary stress. And obviously suicide should never be the option. But I thought this was an interesting little mini case that we could throw in here as a bonus because it's somewhat kind of local, and it's actually a place I haven't been to, the Laurium Manor Inn, but I've gone past there. It really is a beautiful building. It really is. It's very large and very majestic and very white. I guess you could kind of call it like a UP White House. Like it's got like the really pretty pillars and everything. I'll have to pull up a picture and show you, and I will actually probably put a picture of it as the picture for this little mini episode, which, if you're here and you're watching it on posting day, which is Wednesday.
If you have our notifications turned on.
Yeah. If you're here on Wednesday, then go ahead and respond down in the poll. Today's question is going to be, did you know about the history of the Laurium Manor Inn? Because with where we're located, a lot of our listeners right now are also kind of locals. So
Yeah.
did you learn something new today? Let us know. And yeah, I hope you had a fun one. I had a fun little mini episode. And we'll see you guys for the next regularly scheduled broadcast.
Episode.
Bye.
Bye.